Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of Ezoic Explains. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about challenges for digital publishers in 2019. And we just finished some roundtables where we grabbed several expert publishers that were all serving in different roles in their respective organizations. And we spent a little bit of time asking them questions and trying to find out a little bit more about what challenges they have and what they're doing about them. To start, one of the questions we asked was, what does your business plan to try in the next few years? Among all these different publishers, a lot of the information circled around basically trying and testing different models for revenue and then also audience loyalty. So how do they connect with their audience and how do they make them more loyal? Some of the things that were mentioned were growing podcasts, developing more strategic or specific newsletters, and then also trying to figure out how one form of revenue affects another, such as affiliates, advertising, subscriptions. Is there a way to balance all those things together? The next question was, what is an important lesson learned in your current digital property? So what types of lessons were these websites, in a lot of cases, learning about their audiences, and what do they do to try to marry these things together in the future? A lot of them really mentioned data as a major point of something that they were struggling with or trying to leverage to a greater capacity to improve the outcomes on their site. So in a lot of cases, they talked about using data, but then also being cautious about implementing something based on it, because a lot of times they would find that some of the data isn't maybe telling the whole story, and mentioned that testing just about everything is really important. The next question we had was, what has had the most impact of something that you've implemented on your site, or what's something you feel like you would like to get rid of? There was a lot of different challenges and solutions mentioned, but one thing that was universal is that all of them talked about trying to improve direct sales, because that is something that's had a big impact on revenue. They would all like to improve those types of relationships, and doing things like managing programmatic partners, affiliate partners is something that a lot of them mentioned they did not like spending a lot of time on. But all of them actually mentioned they would like to spend more time with data as well. So digging into analytics and prying into those things because they found those things to be very helpful. And then lastly, what is the biggest challenge that they personally had or they saw their respective businesses or publishing properties have, both in terms of 2019 and then also moving into the future in 2020. One that was mentioned from a gentleman by the name of Dave Hamilton from Mac Observer. He said that relevance was actually the thing that they were most concerned about, that they would lose a connection to their audience, and they were considering the fact that, at some point their audience was interested in print and they moved away from print, and now they've connected with their audience via podcast, but in 10 years, will that still be the way they connect with their audience? And they have to just keep their finger on the pulse there. They also talked about how they compete with other maybe larger properties. So there was a publisher there that mentioned that they compete with Zillow for a lot of organic search terms, and just talked about how they compete or how they differentiate and how they sort of think about that in terms of the way that their audience interacts with them, and then maybe some of these other ones as well. What they mentioned was that audiences typically go to both. And so they tried to think about, how do we give our audience something that's slightly different than someone like Zillow? And then lastly, they mentioned the challenges that they have in terms of educating, in some cases, their advertising customers about the value that they're providing. In some cases, they may have an advertiser that's not sophisticated in being able to measure the value of advertising or sponsored content that they sold. And so actually needing to spend time educating or actually serving as sort of a consultant in helping them understand, this is where you're deriving value from the relationship that we're providing. And those are some of the challenges that these publishers shared with us, and some of the strategies that they talked about is that we are moving from 2019 into 2020. Digital publishing is sort of in its golden age, and it's nice to hear from other publishers what they're thinking about and what challenges they have. This has been another episode of Ezoic Explains, and I'm Tyler Bishop.